Philippi awakens under the cold dawn light. Early morning shadows stretch across marble streets, while inside a home near the bustling market, a woman's hands tremble as she pours water into a bronze basin. Once, then twice, the water slowly spills over the edge, dripping down onto the polished floor. She stops, closes her eyes, and takes a deep breath to regain her composure. Outside the city is already waking up. Carts loaded with goods rattle over the cobblestones. Roman soldiers march through shouting orders. In the distance, hammering echoes along the Via Egnatia, the great highway linking Rome to the east. But she remains still. Her lips murmur a silent prayer, words she has repeated every Sabbath for nearly 20 years. Words to a God she has never seen, in a land crowded with visible deities, statues, temples, and altars. What would drive a wealthy, successful woman to risk her own security to welcome complete strangers into her life? How could a decision made on a quiet morning by a river outside the city walls alter the course of the gospel across an entire continent? And why, of all the names forgotten by history, did hers endure? Today we're tracing the story of Lydia of Thyatira, Europe's very first convert. Her home became the first sanctuary for the early Western Church. You'll see how a simple act of hospitality became a massive turning point for the expansion of Christianity. Her choice still echoes every single time someone opens their doors to serve God's kingdom. Because what happens next completely redefines the very meaning of faith. The setting is Philippi, 49 years after Christ, just outside the city walls. The Gangites River winds through open fields and windswept olive trees. It is a quiet Sabbath morning. The air remains cool, untouched by the baking midday heat. By the water, a small group of women gathers on woven mats. Diaspora Jews and devout God-fearers, servants and foreigners grabbing whatever rare moments of rest their masters allow. They are the forgotten, the marginalized. They gather here because Philippi lacks enough Jewish men to officially establish a synagogue. 10 men were required. Instead, they have only a few women, 2 elders, and hope. At the center sits Lydia, her purple cloak folded neatly on the grass. Even from afar, her high status is obvious. She is easily the wealthiest among them, owning a grand house with a sweeping courtyard fountain. Her business employs dozens of workers with trade routes stretching across Macedonia to distant cities like Thyatira and Byzantium, and she built it all herself. Widowed, young, and childless, she took over her late husband's failing shop, turning it into the region's most lucrative purple dye business. Purple, the exclusive color of emperors, senators, and the Roman elite. It was a rare pigment crushed from thousands of shellfish and worth more than gold. In a male-dominated world, Lydia survived by outsmarting everyone around her. She earned respect through iron discipline, sharp strategy, and flawless craftsmanship. But respect is not the same as truly belonging. In the market, she is Lydia, the wealthy purple merchant. But here by the river, she is just Lydia. And for now, that is enough. As the women pray, a Roman patrol marches along the Via Egnatia. The rhythmic pounding of heavy military sandals shatters the morning quiet. One soldier slows down, sneers at them, and spits near the water. "Jewish witches," he mutters with raw contempt, loud enough for everyone to hear. The other soldiers laugh. The women instantly lower their eyes. No one answers, no one reacts, just waiting for the moment to pass. Lydia grips her prayer shawl so tightly, her knuckles turn white. But she keeps her head down. She has learned what it takes to survive in a Roman colony. Sometimes, staying invisible is the only way to survive. The patrol continues down the Via Egnatia, fading into the distance, as the heavy march of Roman sandals dissolves into the background noise of the waking city. The women try to resume their prayers, but the peace is gone. The soldier's cruel insult hangs over them like bitter smoke. No one speaks of it. No one reacts. In Philippi, survival meant swallowing humiliation in silence. The small circle tries returning to their ancient Hebrew prayers, but the joy has been stripped away. Then, in that heavy moment, suspended between embarrassment and weariness, two figures appear on the road from the east. They are walking against the flow of the morning rush. Merchants head toward the market, pushing carts piled high with fabrics and spices. Slaves carry heavy water jars balanced on their shoulders. A tax collector rides past on horseback, never once looking to the side. But those two men look completely out of place here. Thick dust covers their worn clothes, showing the strain of weeks walking through harsh sun, rain, and dangerous roads. The older man limps visibly, each step betraying an ancient pain. His face is deeply lined with exhaustion, yet his eyes hold something hard to explain. A rare kind of silent focus, as if he is constantly looking far beneath the surface. The younger traveler carries a battered leather bag, quietly observing everything with careful discretion, like someone used to documenting history rather than making it. Spotting the prayer group, both men slow their pace. They hesitate as they move. It is not the hesitation of arrogant men trying to dominate a space, but of weary travelers used to rejection before they even speak. The older man finally breaks the silence. His Greek is refined and educated, though layered with a thick foreign accent. "We heard there was a place of prayer here," he says calmly. "Can we join you?" The women quickly trade glances. A male presence at their informal meeting is highly unusual, not forbidden, but it completely shifts the dynamic of a space that has belonged solely to them for years. One of the elders nods quietly in agreement, but it is Lydia who looks up, meeting the stranger's gaze directly. In that exact instant, something completely disarms her. Maybe it's the way he speaks with no superiority. There is none of that male condescension I've had to tolerate since taking over my late husband's business. For years, men tried to explain my own business, questioning my intelligence, doubting my ability to negotiate. But in this man, there is no arrogance, only strength, weariness, and a strange kindness hidden behind the invisible scars of his journey. I watch him in silence for a few moments, then slowly nod my head. "You are welcome." The two settle at the edge of our circle, not pushing to the center. Our prayers resume, but none of us can ignore these unexpected visitors. The wind gently stirs the waters of the Gangites River as the morning sky slowly brightens above the olive trees. When our prayer time ends, the older man discreetly clears his throat before speaking to us again. "May I share something with you?" A story. Not a formal Torah reading or traditional rabbinic sermon. My curiosity is instantly sparked. He begins talking about a rabbi from Nazareth, a town so small and insignificant that no person of importance ever mentioned its name. A Galilean who walked among fishermen, the poor, the sick, and outcasts. A man who called simple laborers his brothers, who touched lepers without fearing defilement, who allowed women to follow him, who dined with sinners. A man whose parables were powerful enough to dismantle everything we believed we understood about God and the world itself. As he speaks, our entire circle involuntarily leans forward in his direction. He tells us this rabbi proclaimed something impossible. The kingdom of God wasn't just a distant promise reserved for the end of time. The kingdom had already begun. It was right here among us. He said the last would be first, the poor were blessed. The meek would inherit the earth, and the merciful would find mercy. Every sentence pierces me in a strange way, as if those words were reaching deep inside me where no one had ever touched. Then his tone shifts. The traveler's voice grows heavy, slowing down. He tells of religious leaders hating that man, Rome, deeming him dangerous, and how he was arrested, beaten, humiliated, and crucified, a death reserved for slaves, rebels, and empire enemies. I feel my entire body tense up. I knew crucifixion. I had seen bodies hanging along the Ignatian Way left in the sun as a silent warning to anyone defying Rome. Crows tearing flesh from corpses. Children looking away while soldiers laughed. The cross wasn't just execution. It was public humiliation, calculated terror. We women now watched the stranger, barely breathing. They crucified him outside of Jerusalem, he continues. And we watched him die. A heavy silence falls, but he is not finished. His voice drops to a reverent whisper. 3 days later, the tomb was empty. The wind seems to stop. The women who went to anoint his body found the stone rolled away. And then he appeared to Mary Magdalene, to Peter, to the disciples, to us. His eyes slowly search our circle. He is alive. The truth hits me like a physical blow. Inside me, something begins to crack silently, like ice breaking after a winter that lasted far too long. My whole life was about survival through absolute control, order, and discipline. Every emotion hidden behind the flawless posture of a respected Philippian businesswoman. I had built everything myself. My wealth, my reputation, my security. But at this moment, I feel everything slipping away completely beyond my control. The younger man carefully opens a leather bag, pulling out a scroll. He unrolls it over his knees. Greek letters appear in dark ink, written in a firm, steady hand. He reads aloud, "The Lord opened her heart to respond to Paul's message." I frown immediately, looking first at the parchment, then staring at the older man. How is my name already written there? I ask, barely realizing it. I haven't even said anything. The man smiles, the look of someone who has seen this many times. Luke only writes what God has already started doing. I slowly lower my eyes to my own hands. They are shaking once more, just like this morning when I spilled water on my courtyard floor. But this is not fear. It is something else entirely. It is the realization that an invisible door whose existence I never suspected has just opened within me, as if light were flooding areas of my soul I believed were locked forever. "Who are you?" I whisper. The man takes a deep breath before responding. "My name is Paul. I was once Saul of Tarsus, a Pharisee who persecuted Jesus' followers." We women look at each other instantly. Paul continues, "I imprisoned them. I watched them die. Until on the road to Damascus, I met the risen Christ." As he leans forward slightly, his tunic moves, exposing his arms. I notice old scars marking his forearms and shoulders, telltale signs of severe beatings, painful wounds, concrete evidence of a life marked by suffering. I have been hunted, shipwrecked, imprisoned, driven out of entire cities, he continues, from Jerusalem to Thessalonica. Everywhere the same thing happens. Then his eyes lock onto mine. God opens hearts. My heart races violently. For 20 years, I had repeated the same prayers, waiting for something I couldn't even define. The God of Israel had always felt distant, holy, powerful, righteous, but distant. He demanded obedience and reverence, yet remained unreachable. And now this man was telling me the impossible, that God came near, took on flesh, suffered, bled, died, rose, and was right here, opening my heart. The question slips out before I can think, what do I do now? Paul's smile widens with weary tenderness. "You are already doing it." He gently points to me. "Are you listening? Are you believing?" A holy silence follows. No one moves. No one dares interrupt. The women around us clearly sense that something happened here this morning. The very air feels different, heavier, more alive, charged with an inexplicable presence. I look back at Paul, this limping, scarred man standing before me, carrying wild news of a crucified and risen Messiah. Right then, I make a choice that will reshape my entire life and the future of the church in Europe. Come to my home, I say, my voice steady now. Stay with me. Teach us more. Paul and Luke exchange a quick glance. I see the hesitation in the apostles' eyes. Lydia, you do not understand what you are asking. Wherever we go, trouble follows us. But I cut him off before he can even finish. Then let trouble come. There is no tremble in my voice now. For if this is true, if God truly opened my heart, then shutting my door would be living a lie. Paul remains silent for a few seconds, studying me. A wealthy, influential, and respected woman in Philippi, a seller of purple, accustomed to controlling everything around me. But in that moment, my story is no longer just mine. I belong to something much greater. With a simple nod of my head, we agree. We will go. The small group begins to slowly scatter along the riverbanks, but I stand frozen for a few seconds watching Paul and Luke as the morning breeze gently ripples the waters of the Gangites. The sun has climbed above the hills, and heat begins to warm the city stones. As I walk back to Philippi, followed by the two travelers at a respectful distance, thoughts collide inside me with a force I can barely contain. I think of everything I have built, my spacious home near the Forum, my purple dye workshop, the contracts signed with Roman officials, and the years of discipline it took to survive in a world that crushes weak women. I recall the quiet humiliation this morning, a Roman soldier spitting on the dirt right before us, and the constant feeling that I never truly belong anywhere. Too rich to fit in with the simple women by the river, too much of a foreigner to be accepted by the Roman elite. Too strong to receive pity, too vulnerable to rest. Then Paul's words echo in my mind like something I cannot silence. The Lord opened your heart. He didn't say will open or maybe. He already did. Something had begun before I even understood it. Without realizing it, I notice my hands have stopped shaking. My house sits right in the commercial heart of Philippi, near the main forum. It is a spacious, solid estate built around an inner courtyard of pale columns. Next to the east wing sits my dye workshop, strategically placed to catch the morning light, which is essential for checking the delicate quality of my purple fabrics. In the center of the courtyard, a small stone fountain flows, constantly cooling the air during the intense Macedonian heat. My floor mosaics do not show mythological scenes like wealthy Roman estates. Instead, they feature elegant, understated geometric patterns, showing I value order over showing off. This is the home of a woman who built everything with her own two hands. Every wall of my home holds the weight of decades of tough negotiations and sleepless nights, of losses averted at the last second, and deals made where men constantly tried to belittle me. Nothing was ever handed to me. As I walk through the gates with Paul and Luke, I see the news has already spread. Marcus is waiting for me in the courtyard, a Greek freedman around 40. He has managed my workshop for nearly 10 years. He had been enslaved once, until I recognized his sharp mind and bought his freedom. Since then, we have built a partnership on trust, skill, and clear boundaries. Marcus is more than an employee. He is the one person who truly understands the sacrifices behind my wealth. But today, tension fills his eyes. He barely glances at my guests. "Lydia," he whispers, keeping his voice low. "I need to speak with you." Seeing the tension in his face, I lead him into my study, the private room where I handle contracts, financial books, and delicate matters. The moment the door closes, Marcus spins around. "You invited them to stay here?" I meet his gaze, staying silent for a moment. "I asked around the forum," he says, running a hand through his thinning hair. "One is a Roman citizen who gave up everything to preach against the emperor. The magistrates are already watching them." I slowly set my small leather purse on the desk. They have nowhere else to go. Marcus takes a deep breath, fighting his frustration. That is not your problem. A heavy silence falls between us. Then he steps closer. Do you understand the risk? His voice drops, turning deadly serious. Half the military command in Macedonia buys from you. Centurions wear your robes. The proconsul's wife orders from you directly. One single rumor that you are harboring religious agitators and everything we built is gone. I stand firm. They are not agitators. Marcus stares at me in disbelief. Lydia, they preach a crucified king, a Jewish Messiah executed by Rome. How do you think the empire views that? I finally look him in the eyes. Marcus has always been loyal, cautious, and wise. For years, he was one of the very few people I trusted. But he wasn't by the river this morning. He didn't hear those words or feel what I felt. To be honest, I barely understand it myself. I know exactly what is at stake. I reply quietly, "And you will still do this?" I hesitate. Then I say something that surprises even me. Perhaps I am tired of measuring my every step. Marcus frowns. That did not sound like me at all. I had always calculated everything, weighed every risk, and anticipated every consequence. That caution kept me alive and prosperous in a harsh world for independent women. But now something inside me has shifted. I spent 20 years trying to control everything, I say slowly. Every word, every choice, every emotion. Always proving I was strong enough, smart enough, indispensable enough. My voice cracks slightly for the first time. Do you know what I gained from all this? Marcus stays silent. Money. I look around my office. Respect contracts a beautiful house. My face softens, but also loneliness. Silence hangs heavy between us. And exhaustion. Marcus lowers his eyes. I go on. I am so tired of living like my worth depends on being perfect. Finally, his expression softens. Lydia, I am only trying to protect you. I step closer. I know. I place my hand on his arm. But this time, Marcus, I do not need protection. I lock eyes with him, resolute. I need you to trust me. Marcus closes his eyes for a moment, then slowly nods. Concern still fills his face. I hope you know what you are doing, he says. I whisper back, I hope so too. That night, Paul and Luke stay in my courtyard. Like fire spreading through dry streets, the news quietly sweeps through Philippi. In my home, these men are teaching resurrection, a crucified Messiah, and a new covenant. Within days, crowds gather every afternoon in my courtyard. Enslaved workers slip in secretly after finishing their hard daily chores. Market women join us after closing their stalls. Curious merchants slip in just to listen, but find themselves staying until dusk. Paul teaches from a simple stone bench. He never shouts. His voice holds something far beyond mere rhetoric, an authority not born of force, but from the deep conviction of a man who truly believes what he proclaims. Luke sits nearby, carefully writing everything down in his scrolls. Sometimes he answers newcomers' questions, and I, Lydia, just listen. Even as my hands work through the fabrics in my shop, my mind clings to Paul's words. He speaks of grace completely shattering everything I once knew. The idea that God's love did not have to be bought, earned, or won through flawless performance. Paul tells us God does not love us because we produce, obey, or sacrifice more. He loves simply because he chooses to. It feels dangerous, revolutionary, nearly impossible. Then, on a humid afternoon, Paul raises his voice slightly to the crowd in my courtyard. In Christ, there is no Jew or Greek, slave or free, male or female. You are all one. The silence that follows is absolute. Even a Roman centurion passing by slows his pace at my open gate. He glares for a moment, spits on the ground, and marches off. But before he disappears, I notice something chilling. He is carefully memorizing my home's location. That night, I cannot sleep. I sit alone in my workshop, surrounded by bolts of purple fabric stacked to the ceiling. The pungent scent of shellfish dye fills the room. A sharp, salty, familiar scent. The smell of my entire life. My fingers glide over a freshly dyed cloth. The texture is perfect. The weave is flawless. The quality that built my reputation across Macedonia. My father taught me this trade when I was only 6 years old, but he died too soon. Sickness consumed everything. My mother was left alone with 3 children and a failing business. I had to grow up fast. By 15, I was managing suppliers. At 20, I married a much older merchant who recognized my intelligence and gave me capital to expand our trade. When he died, everyone expected the business to collapse. But I survived and triumphed. Every roll of fabric in this room represents a hard-won battle, every contract renewed, every single coin saved, every happy customer. Silent proof that I was strong, capable, and worthy. But now, Paul's words cut deep like an open wound. You are loved not for what you produce, but for who you are. So for the first time in decades, I break down. The tears come heavy and deep. My entire body shakes as decades of buried pain and tight control finally crack open. I weep for the father I lost too young, for my exhausted mother, for the husband who was kind but never truly saw me, for the children I never had, for the isolation, for the bone-deep exhaustion of always staying strong. I weep because for once, someone finally said the words my soul had been aching to hear since childhood. You do not have to prove your worth to be loved. As my tears dry, I sit on the workshop floor, empty, yet lighter than ever. Like someone shedding heavy armor they never even realized they were wearing. The next morning, my courtyard is fuller than ever. 20, maybe 25 people. Our numbers are growing fast. I recognize faces from our river prayer group, but many are new. A Syrian merchant I once traded with, a Greek physician, servants of elite Romans and curious citizens drawn by whispers drifting through town. Paul keeps teaching with absolute clarity and conviction, laying out the story of Jesus before us, the incarnation, the miracles, the teachings, the betrayal, the cross, and the resurrection, completely rebuilding everything we thought we understood about God, power, sin, hope, and ourselves. But it is not just the history that captivates us. It is the raw implication. Paul is not merely telling us what Jesus did. What makes his words so deeply disruptive and yet completely irresistible is that he explains exactly what this means for each of us listening. It is not a distant philosophy or a religion for the elite. It is dangerously personal. As he speaks, enslaved servants begin to realize, perhaps for the first time, that their value is not bound by their chains. Women used to being treated as spiritually second class hear that in Christ they stand equal to any man. Foreigners, Greeks, Syrians, and Romans, forever shut out of the Old Covenant, discover that a door has been flung wide open for them too. Jesus does not just fit into our world. He upends it. On one quiet afternoon, as our group rests between teachings, Luke approached my workshop as I was organizing some freshly dyed rolls of fabric. He watched the crowd with the quiet focus of a man used to noticing details others missed. Unlike Paul, whose presence dominated any room, Luke carried a gentle quiet. His eyes belonged to a man who listened more than he spoke. He stepped closer, careful not to interrupt me. You are running a massive risk by hosting us here. he whispered. I kept folding my fabric for a few seconds before replying, I know. Luke leaned gently against a nearby stone pillar. Paul does not always notice this, he said, a tired smile touching his face. He focuses so much on the message that he forgets the cost for those who help him. But I see it. I looked up at him, feeling a strange wave of gratitude for his honesty. Luke hesitated as if debating whether to say more. Then he went on. We have been driven out of entire cities. Antioch, Iconium, Lystra. Shadow crossed his face as he remembered. In Lystra, they stoned Paul until they thought he was dead. They dragged him out of the city like an animal. I completely stopped what I was doing. This message stirs up trouble wherever it goes, Luke continued. The religious leaders hate us because we say their hopes are fulfilled in Christ. And Rome, he sighed. Rome hates us because we proclaim another Lord. That heavy word hung in the air between us, Kyrios, the exact title used for Caesar. Sometimes the crowd welcomes us, Luke said. Other times they turn on us, depending on who gets to them first. He looked straight at me. I am not trying to scare you. I rested my hands on the wooden table. Then what are you trying to do? Luke kept his eyes locked on mine. To prepare you. A heavy silence stretched out between us. I looked out toward the courtyard where crowds now gathered daily to hear Paul. There was something desperately painful in the hunger etched on their faces, like souls too thirsty to pretend they could go back to their old lives. I thought of the centurion who stared at my house yesterday, mapping out the location in his mind before marching away. I thought of the warnings, the business contracts I stood to lose, the empire I built over decades, and the safety now teetering on collapse. But then I remembered that morning by the river, that unexplainable feeling like a light flooding into the dark, forgotten corners of my soul. Honestly, I murmured, still staring at the courtyard, I think I was walking this path before I even realized it. Luke watched me in silence. I gave a bittersweet smile. I just did not know it until yesterday. That very afternoon, everything shifted. A young slave girl appeared outside my gate. I had seen her in the marketplace before. Everyone in Philippi knew her. She was impossible to ignore, wandering the streets with wealthy men, shouting prophecies in an eerie, hollow, otherworldly voice. Her masters made a fortune off her. Men threw down coins for predictions about their fortunes, journeys, marriages, and wars. Some believed she truly had a spirit of divination. Others saw only madness turned into a highly profitable show. But as she stood before my gate, she looked deeply broken. Her eyes were vacant and hollow, as if someone else was looking through them. She stood frozen, watching Paul teach in my courtyard. Then she suddenly shrieked, "These men are servants of the Most High God." My courtyard froze. They proclaim the way of salvation. Her words echoed off my stone pillars as the crowd exchanged terrified glances. Paul's face immediately hardened. He had seen her trailing us through the streets for days, and he knew exactly what we were dealing with. Still, she kept shrieking, "The way of salvation, the Most High God." The words were true, but they came from a dark, corrupted source. Paul knew how dangerous that was. One by one, uneasy guests began slipping out of my courtyard. They had not come to witness demonic fits. They had come seeking hope. Within minutes, half the crowd had fled. Then Paul stood up, his face dark with resolve, and walked slowly toward my front gate. The girl locked her eyes on him, her entire body rigid. She gripped the iron bars of my gate so tightly, her knuckles turned white, leaning forward. But when she spoke, her voice dropped to a chilling whisper so low that only I, standing right beside them, could hear. "He will be beaten." My blood ran cold. The girl flashed a sickening smile. "And you will have to choose." For a moment, the world fell dead silent. I tried to answer, but my voice caught. "Choose what?" I managed. She only laughed, a hollow, inhuman cackle. Then she wandered back down the street, melting slowly into the fading light of the evening crowd. I stood frozen by the iron gates for several seconds, my heart hammer-beat in my chest. I did not believe in fortune-tellers. I did not trust spirits. But those words carved themselves deep into my soul. He will be beaten. He will have to choose. Paul quietly stepped beside me. "Do not listen to her," he said softly. "Whatever is inside that girl, it is not of God." I kept my eyes fixed on the empty street. But what if she is right? He fell silent for a long moment, then gave an answer that caught me completely off guard. "Even a broken clock is right twice a day." I looked at him and he offered a tired, sad smile. "Yes, I will likely be beaten." He shrugged. "It has happened before. It will happen again." His face hardened. That is the cost of preaching a gospel that threatens every power structure of this world. The wind swept through my quiet courtyard. "But you do not have to pay this price with us," he said. "We can leave." I immediately shook my head. "No." The words slipped out before I could even think. He watched me intently. "This is where you must stay," I insisted. "I know it." I looked directly at this scarred, strange man who had appeared at the riverbank just days ago and turned my entire world upside down. Because if God opened my heart, my voice drops to a whisper, then he didn't do it just for me. Paul smiles slowly. I see sadness in his eyes, but also pride. "You are braver than you think," he tells me. Then he adds, "or more reckless." I finally smile too. "Sometimes they are the same thing," he concludes. That night, I lie awake in my dark room for hours, staring at the ceiling and listening to the steady trickle of the courtyard fountain. Outside, Philippi slowly sinks into the silence of the night, yet rest won't come. The slave girl's words echo in my mind, the centurion at my door, Marcus's warnings, fear rolling in like a distant storm on the horizon. I close my eyes, and for the first time in years, I pray without rituals or rehearsed lines, just raw truth. God, if you truly opened my heart, my voice cracks. Please do not let me close it now. The midnight silence feels like a witness. Whatever happens, do not let me turn back. Outside, stars spin slowly over Macedonia. Just outside, the Via Egnatia pulses with life all night, carrying soldiers' cargo and imperial news from one end of the Roman world to the other. Somewhere in the city, magistrates sleep peacefully in their grand villas. In another dark corner, that young slave girl mutters to the shadows, tormenting her. And inside my home, the house of a purple merchant. The first church in Europe takes its very first breath. Tiny, fragile, hidden, but alive. My door stays open, leaving only one question. How long can we keep it this way? Over the next few days, my home is utterly transformed. Our meetings grow too fast, 40 people, sometimes 50. Some arrive before dawn, hoping to slip back before their masters notice they are gone. Paul teaches at dusk. Luke guides the newcomers in the morning, and we regularly baptize new believers right in my courtyard fountain. Water splashes across my mosaics as men and women rise from the depths, weeping, trembling, and holding one another. I watch it all with a mix of awe and tightening anxiety. My home has stopped being just a house. It has become something I never imagined could exist. It no longer feels like the villa of a wealthy merchant. It is turning into something alive, breathing, and impossible to hide. My courtyard, once used for discussing fabric shipments and trade routes, is now alive with prayers and whispered questions no one dares ask in public. People who normally would never cross paths now sit side by side. Slaves whisper about my home while unloading cargo at the docks. Women quiet their voices to speak of us at the wells. Even Roman citizens are showing up, some out of curiosity, some out of suspicion, and others because their souls are too restless to stay away. I cannot always tell who comes to learn and who comes to spy, but there is no turning back. My home is no longer my own. It is a sanctuary, a refuge, a beacon burning in the dark heart of Philippi. Meanwhile, Marcus grows quieter. He still runs my dye works with his usual flawless efficiency, supervising shipments, negotiating prices, and keeping production running as if nothing has changed. But the bond between us is fading. Our warmth is gone. We speak only when necessary. Our old trust has turned to caution. It isn't anger, but fear disguised as distance. I feel it as a painful loss, yet I have no idea how to fix it or how to explain to him who I am becoming when I barely understand it myself. The breaking point comes on a Thursday morning during our monthly Merchants Guild meeting. We gather in a private room above a tavern near the central forum of Philippi. The air smells of cheap wine, burning lamp oil, and old timber. 5 of us, the city's top merchants, sit around a long oak table. There is Demetrius, the Greek silk importer; Quintus, a Roman equestrian trading in precious stones; Thaddeus, the Syrian who dominates the spice trade; Cassia, a widow hardened by the years who owns the local pottery workshops; and myself, representing the purple dye trade. We have met like this for years. We aren't friends. Merchants rarely have real friends. Instead, we share a colder, more practical bond, aligned interests. We share gossip on safe trade routes, fix collective prices, hire caravan escorts, and shield each other from heavy losses. Together, we are strong. Apart, we are vulnerable. The meeting starts as usual. We debate the Roman proconsul's new taxes, rumors of pirates disrupting shipping near Ephesus, and rising maritime transport costs, and proposals to reinforce security for the trade caravans crossing Macedonia. Then, at a certain moment, Quintus leans back, swirling his wine in a bronze cup. His voice is smooth, deceptively friendly, the kind of tone meant to cut you down without showing teeth. "Lydia, I hear you are hosting some troublemaking Jews." A heavy silence immediately blankets the room. I feel every eye in the room turn toward me. Slowly, I set my wax tablet down on the table. "They are my guests," I reply. Quintus raises an eyebrow. "Guests who could get you blacklisted from every port between here and Byzantium?" His fake warmth is gone, now replaced by cold steel. "The magistrates have started watching them," he continues, "and that means they are watching anyone associated with them." Demetrius shifts uneasily in his chair. "Lydia, no one wants to control your life," Demetrius says, avoiding my eyes. "But this hurts us all." "How exactly?" I ask, keeping my voice steady. "Why does reputation matter?" Demetrius snaps. "If Rome targets you, it hurts us all." Lydia slowly folds her hands on the table. "I haven't broken any law. I'm just offering hospitality to travelers." Quintus scoffs. "When those travelers preach rebellion, it becomes our problem." Thaddeus chimes in, his Syrian accent thick. "I heard they caused riots in Thessalonica. The entire city was in total chaos." "They claim a crucified man is king," Quintus adds. "They say Caesar is not Lord, gathering illegal crowds. This isn't just religion, Lydia. It's high-stakes politics." The word hangs heavy in the air. Politics. Rome tolerated many gods, but never threats to the empire. Lydia looks around the table. She had known these people for years, trading together, sharing meals, and surviving the brutal ups and downs of Mediterranean commerce. But in this moment, we watch her realize something crucial. They were never her true allies. Only allies of profit and safety. Now they saw her as a dangerous risk. Cassia leans forward, Her voice is softer than the men's, but it carries a much heavier weight because she knows the exact price of being a woman in this brutal empire. Lydia, you know this as well as I do. She speaks slowly. We had to be twice as smart and 3 times as careful as any man in this city just to keep our businesses alive. The men stay silent. Cassia continues. We cannot afford to draw attention for the wrong reasons. There is almost sadness in her voice now. Send these men away. It is not worth the risk. Lydia's heart sinks because part of her knows Cassia is right. Years spent learning to survive through careful calculation. Every single word measured, every gesture controlled, every relationship strategically built to avoid vulnerability. This was how women survived. That was how she had survived. And if I don't? She finally asks. Quintus sets his cup down. The warmth has completely drained from his face. Then we must reconsider our partnership with you. The threat is clear. No trade guild protection, no insider shipping info, no joint supplier deals, no logistical support. She would be cast out alone, facing the vast Mediterranean trade market without a single ally. Her business might survive for a while. The premium quality of her purple dye was too famous to vanish overnight. But everything would become harder. Much harder. And if political rumors spread, she could lose everything. Lydia thinks of the lucrative contracts signed with Roman officials, the suppliers in Thyatira, the dye makers in Tyre, and the years spent building credit in a world ready to crush any woman showing weakness. 20 years. 20 years of proving her worth. Then out of nowhere, Paul's words flash through her mind. Store up treasures where moth and rust cannot destroy. In that single second, she feels a profound shift deep inside. She slowly stands up, leaving the merchants utterly stunned. The meeting isn't over, but staying now feels like betraying something far greater than money, prestige, or market share. I appreciate your concern, she says calmly. I truly do. Her eyes lock onto each face. But these men are not troublemakers. Quintus laughs bitterly. Then what are they? Lydia pauses for a heartbeat, then replies, They are teaching me how to truly live. The silence is absolute. And it has changed my life, she breathes. So no, I will not cast them out. Demetrius looks down. Cassia's expression hardens. Quintus just glares. Even knowing this will cost her standing in the guild, Lydia feels fear, deep fear. But for the first time, she notices something strange. Fear no longer dictates her choices. If staying here means denying what I know to be true, she says slowly, then perhaps I no longer belong to this guild. She turns for the door. Behind her, Quintus shouts, You are making a massive mistake, Lydia. She stops at the threshold, but does not turn. Perhaps, she whispers, pausing. But it is my choice to make. The walk home feels endless. The forum is packed with midday crowds. Merchants shout their deals. Children dart between fruit stands. Near the main fountain, Roman soldiers toss dice. Life goes on exactly the same. But to Lydia, everything feels entirely different. As if she is wading through deep water, her old self vanishing with every step. She doesn't go home. Instead, she walks to the river to the exact spot where it all began. There is no meeting today. It is Thursday, not the Sabbath. Just a few women washing clothes downstream and children splashing in the shallows of the Gangites. Lydia sits on the very rock where she first heard Paul speak. She tries to pray, but no words come. There is only a heavy, unspeakable ache. Fear, grief, and pain. Not just for what she might lose, but for the woman she is leaving behind. The woman who knew exactly how to survive in this harsh world. The woman who mastered the rules. The woman in total total control. That old self was dying, and she had no idea who would take her place. Suddenly, a gentle voice cuts through her thoughts. "I figured I would find you here." She turns. Luke approaches slowly, his leather bag slung over his shoulder. He sits on a nearby stone, offering her the quiet space she needs. "Rough day?" he asks. Lydia lets out a dry, humorless laugh. "I think I just destroyed my entire network." Luke simply nods, understanding. "Paul did the same," Luke explains. She looks up. Before Damascus, he was a rising star among the Pharisees. Brilliant, respected, groomed for high office in the Sanhedrin. He gazes out over the rushing river. But after meeting Christ, he lost everything. His old allies wanted him dead, Luke continues. His new brothers didn't trust him. For a long time, he belonged nowhere. Lydia squeezes a smooth pebble in her palm. "Does it get better?" Luke smiles warmly. "No, not exactly." She waits for him to explain, and it hits her. The wind blows softly across the gangites. He whispers, "But you stop measuring your life by what you lost, and you begin measuring it by what you found." I stood in silence for a few seconds, then stared at the river. "I still don't know exactly what I found." Luke smiled again. "A family." I frowned slightly. "It might not seem like it now," he continued. "Families are complicated, loud, sometimes disappointing." Then he pointed toward the city. "But that is what's growing inside your home." His voice dropped to a whisper. "People united not by blood or business, but by Christ." But there was something stronger here. A shared story, a hope binding us together. "What if this story gets us all killed?" I asked. Luke smiled sadly. "Then we die together, and that's still better than dying alone." It wasn't exactly comforting, but it was honest. And I valued honesty. I was tired of convenient lies. That night, I opened the safe kept in my private room. It was a heavy chest of dark wood reinforced with iron bands and locked with a key I always wore on a chain around my neck. Inside were my life savings, gold and silver coins, carefully saved over 2 decades. Enough to live on for a year, maybe 2, if I lived frugally. It was my emergency fund, my shield against disaster, my concrete proof that I was ready for life's uncertainties. I sat before the chest, staring at those coins. That was security, or at least the illusion of it. For what use was gold if saving it meant selling my own soul? What good was safety if it kept me from the first real truth I had ever found? I ran my thumb over a coin stamped with Caesar's face. I felt the raised edges, the imperial seal, the weight of that power in my hands. That coin represented Caesar's dominion over the world. Every purchase, every sale, every transaction made with it acknowledged his authority. But Paul had said, "Jesus is Lord." And if Jesus was Lord, then Caesar was not. Those coins, despite their weight and value, bowed to a greater authority. I closed the chest, locked the lid, but didn't put the key back around my neck. Instead, I left it in plain sight on the table, a reminder, a testament. I could still cling to safety, but I was learning to let go. That was when someone knocked at the door. It was Chloe, one of my household servants. The young girl looked nervous. "Mistress, someone is at the door. She won't give her name, but says it's urgent." I followed Chloe to the entrance. Outside, almost hidden in the dim twilight, stood the enslaved girl who was possessed by a spirit of divination. The very one who had followed Paul shouting prophecies, the one who had whispered warnings to me before. But now she was different. Her eyes were clear, present human. She was shaking, arms wrapped tight around her body. "Please," she whispered, "help me. They're going to kill me." My heart raced. "Who is going to kill you?" "My owners. The spirit is gone. That man Paul cast it out this afternoon. Now I can't prophesy. I can't make them money anymore. So they will..." The girl collapsed in tears. I didn't hesitate. I opened the door, pulled her inside, and locked it behind us. This was dangerous. Technically, I was harboring a runaway slave. The punishment could be severe, even deadly. But I couldn't leave her out there. "Chloe, take her to the kitchen. Give her something to eat. I need to find Paul." I found Paul in the courtyard, talking to Silas. When I told them what happened, his face went pale. "Where is she now?" "In the kitchen." "Paul, what did you do?" He closed his eyes for a moment. "I cast the spirit out. It followed us for days, shouting we were servants of the Most High God." Technically true, but I couldn't let a demon witness the truth because it corrupted our message. So in Jesus' name, I ordered it out, and it left. And now her owners have lost their source of income. Paul took a deep breath. I didn't think about that. I should have, but I didn't. I saw a girl enslaved by darkness, and I set her free. You freed her from one slavery just to deliver her to another. A heavy silence fell between us. "Lydia," Paul said softly, "you must send her back. I know it sounds cruel, but if they find her here, they won't just come for her. They'll come for you, for all of us." I thought of the girl's face, wet with tears. I thought of her trembling hands and the awful fate of runaway slaves who were caught. Then I thought of the words I'd heard all week in my own courtyard. In Christ, there is neither slave nor free. Beautiful words, lovely words. But what did they actually mean when a terrified girl showed up at my door begging for help? "No," I said quietly. "I am not sending her back." "Paul, you said Jesus came to set the captives free. You said God's kingdom has already begun. So tell me how that kingdom looks like frightened girls being handed over to men who will kill them." Paul fell silent. Silas shifted his gaze, uncomfortable. Finally, Paul spoke. "No, it doesn't look like that. So she stays. But there will be consequences." "Everything has consequences," I replied. "We chose this path knowing that." Paul nodded slowly. Then to my surprise, he smiled. "Are you braver or more foolish than I am?" I raised an eyebrow. "I already told you maybe it's the same thing." That night, I lay awake listening to the house. My home felt larger now, fuller, more alive, filled with people who had come to teach and stayed because they had nowhere else to go. The exhausted girl slept in the kitchen. Paul and Silas were in the guest room. Luke was likely still writing by lamplight. I thought about the guild meeting, the ultimatum, the chest in my room filled with gold and silver, the clear-eyed girl who could no longer tell the future, and the storm gathering on the horizon. The girl was right about one thing. Paul would be attacked. I knew it now with the certainty of someone who sees the dawn before anyone else. Her owners wouldn't accept the loss. They would demand justice, and when that happened, I would have to choose. Step back, pretend ignorance, protect myself and my home, or step forward. I already knew what my choice would be, but knowing didn't make the decision any easier. Outside, past my window, the stars began to fade. Dawn was coming. Just another day in Philippi, taking another step into the unknown. I got up early that morning. I washed my face slowly, hoping the cold water could wash away the heavy weight in my chest. I took a deep breath, preparing to face the day. But trouble found me first. Just 2 days after I welcomed that poor girl into my home, her owners arrived in Philippi. I was at the market, negotiating fabrics with a merchant from Neapolis, when I saw them cutting through the stalls. 3 well-dressed men, oozing confidence with the arrogant stride of men used to owning human beings and taking whatever they wanted. They were questioning the local vendors, flashing coins. When the other vendors pointed discreetly in my direction while whispering, I understood instantly. They were hunting for the girl. My stomach knotted in fear. I abruptly cut my transaction short, overpaying for the fabric just to escape as fast as possible. As I sprinted through the narrow city streets, my heart hammered against my ribs. I had to warn Paul. Maybe we still had time. Maybe we could hide the girl, move her to another house, or slip her out of Philippi before those men found her. But the moment I reached my house, I realized quiet hiding was no longer an option. My courtyard was packed, far more crowded than usual. At least 70 people had gathered. Some sat on the floor while others leaned against the walls listening intently. And in the center of that unlikely crowd, Paul was teaching about freedom. The law was our guardian until Christ, he proclaimed. But now that faith has come, we are no longer under it. For you are all children of God through faith in Christ Jesus. The entire courtyard fell dead silent. Then Paul continued, "For all of you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." I looked around. Slaves stood side by side with their masters. Women listened alongside men, and Jews conversed with Greeks. It defied all Roman logic. This was exactly the kind of unity that made the empire tremble. Rome survived by dividing us, sorting us, dictating who mattered and who did not. But here in my courtyard, those barriers simply melted away. Then I spotted the girl. She was not hiding in the kitchen or trying to disappear into the shadows. She was sitting in the very front row, and that terrifying emptiness in her eyes was gone. Now there was life and hope. She drank in Paul's words like someone tasting water after a long desert trek. Every word brought deep healing. I tried to catch Paul's eye discreetly. He noticed immediately, his gaze meeting mine. He knew right away that something was terribly wrong, yet he kept teaching, because that was Paul. He spoke the truth even when he knew it would cost him everything. He planted seeds even when he doubted he would ever see the harvest. Our gathering finally ended an hour later, but people lingered, still discussing his words in small groups around the courtyard. I hurried over to Paul. "The girl's owners are at the market," I whispered. "They are hunting for her. We have to—" I was cut off by a violent pounding on my front door. Again and again, angry voices shouted outside. Marco rushed in, pale as a ghost. "Lydia, there are men outside. They demand entry. They say we are hiding stolen property." "Bar the door," I ordered immediately. "Don't let anyone in." But deep down, I already knew it was futile. In a Roman colony like ours, accusations never stay outside for long. The law always forces its way in. Paul placed a hand on my shoulder. "Let them in. Resisting will only make things worse." I hesitated, then nodded to Marco. The doors flew open and the three men barged in like they owned my home. Their leader was older, with the cold, calculating gaze of a man who had built a business out of human suffering for decades. The moment he entered, he spotted the girl and pointed directly at her. "That slave is our property. We came to take her." The girl cringed behind Paul. Silas stepped forward, shielding her. "She is not property. She is a human being." The man did not even look at Silas. "She is a slave. We have documents. She belongs to us." Then he glared at Paul. "You ruined her value. She brought in 50 denarii a day telling fortunes. Now she is worth absolutely nothing." "I delivered her from a demon," Paul replied calmly. "I owe you nothing." The man's face darkened. "So you admit you ruined our business?" "I admit I freed her." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then the man sneered, a cold and cruel expression twisting his face. "We are taking this to the magistrates." Paul held his gaze without flinching. "Do what you must." Maybe it was the wrong answer, or maybe it was the only possible answer, but we all knew right then that severe consequences were coming. "Oh, we will," the man sneered, "and we won't just accuse you of disturbing the peace. We will say you promote unlawful customs forbidden to Roman citizens. The magistrates will see you as a threat." He spun around to face the crowd lingering in my courtyard. "Did you all hear that? You are witnesses. These men violate Roman law. Anyone who stands with them will suffer the same fate." The threat worked instantly. Fear swept through the crowd like wildfire. Within minutes, my courtyard began to empty as people scrambled to escape, avoiding each other's eyes, desperate to outrun the coming storm. In the end, only my household and my servants remained, those with nowhere else to run, along with Marco, who stayed purely out of loyalty, and the girl. The men left behind threats and promises of absolute ruin. The moment they vanished down the street, the girl broke down weeping in desperate, ragged sobs. "I am sorry I ruined everything." Paul knelt before her, holding her trembling hands. "You did not ruin anything. You are free, and that is what truly matters." But I was not so sure, because sometimes freedom costs lives. That night, I sat alone in my dark workshop, surrounded by hanging purple fabrics that looked like ghosts of my collapsing life. I picked up an unfinished cloth, tracing my fingers over the delicate raw threads. My father taught me that when I was a little girl. How to set up a loom, control the tension, and spin simple threads into something beautiful. He died when I was only 12, leaving behind a widow, 3 children, and debts we could never pay. That was when I learned a cruel truth. Beauty doesn't feed anyone. Business does. Strategy does. Being indispensable keeps you alive. So I became indispensable. I learned to weave the finest purple cloth in Macedonia. I learned to negotiate without showing weakness and to survive a ruthless world. And it worked. I survived. I prospered. I built wealth, security, and a whole life anchored in absolute control. But now I was choosing something completely different. I had made my choice to value people over profit. I chose to protect a terrified girl instead of guarding commercial alliances built carefully over the years. I chose truth over safety, and I was terrified. An hour later, Luke found me sitting alone in my workshop, the room swallowed by darkness, save for the faint moonlight filtering through the window shutters. An unfinished cloth rested on my lap, still threaded through my still fingers. Quietly, Luke lit a lamp. Golden light cast soft shadows across the walls draped in purple fabrics. He pulled up a small wooden stool and sat right in front of me. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence felt heavy, crowded with thoughts we didn't know how to put into words. Then Luke broke the silence. "Are you afraid?" I let out. A short, bitter laugh. "Terrified." Luke nodded slowly. "That is good." I looked up at him, surprised. "Good means you finally understand the weight of what you are doing." I rested my elbows on my knees, exhausted. "Is that supposed to comfort me?" "No," Luke answered honestly, "but it should stop you from lying to yourself." He leaned forward, resting his arms on his legs. "Can I tell you a story?" I gave a slight nod. Luke watched the lamp flame flicker for a few seconds before he began. "Before I met Paul, I was a doctor in Antioch. I had a good, comfortable life treating wealthy families. My reputation was solid. People trusted me. I was respected." He smiled without joy, and I was also deeply empty. I stayed silent, and Luke continued. "One day they brought me a Christian who had been beaten nearly to death for preaching about Jesus. His ribs were shattered. His face was disfigured. He could barely breathe. Luke's voice grew quiet. While I bandaged his wounds, that man began speaking of resurrection, of how death had been defeated, and how fear no longer had the final word. I watched Luke's face illuminated by the lamp. There was pain there, wounds still open. And then I realized something Luke said. That man had nothing, no security, no protection, no money. They had beaten him raw, and yet he had no fear. Luke looked up. While I had everything, money, status, comfort, and still lived terrified. Fear of what? I asked softly. Of losing it all. Fear of aging. Fear of failing. Fear of death. All my security didn't set me free. It just gave me more things to lose. Silence fell between us again. The flame flickered softly. So you walked away from it all? I asked. Luke smiled slightly. Yes, and I lost a lot. He paused. But I found something I didn't even know was missing. What? A purpose greater than just surviving. His eyes shone with calm intensity. A story worth living. He took a deep breath. And maybe a story worth dying to protect. I looked down at the fabric in my hands. My father's words echoed in my memory like a distant whisper. Purple is the color of kings. As a child, I didn't fully understand. Only later did I learn that the most precious dye in the world began as something worthless. Crushed shells mud the sharp stench of salt and decay. Beauty was born from what was broken. Maybe people are like that too. Maybe I am too. The next morning, Marcus was waiting for me in the atrium. The fountain in the center of the courtyard trickled softly between us, filling the heavy silence. He had been avoiding me for days, but something in him finally broke. I am leaving, he said. The words hit me like a physical blow. I blinked slowly. Leaving, Marcus nodded. You know I am not a slave. I am free. I can leave whenever I want. But why? He rubbed his face in frustration. Because I cannot watch you destroy your own life. His voice cracked for the first time in years. I have worked by your side for 10 years, Lydia. I saw you build all this from nothing. You are the smartest woman I have ever known, the most brilliant strategist I have ever seen. He gestured around. All this exists because of you. Then his face hardened. And now you are throwing it all away for 2 Jewish preachers and a runaway slave. I held his gaze. It is not because of them. Then what is it for? I hesitated because the truth was hard to explain, even hard to understand. Marcus shook his head slowly. Truth does not pay debts, Lydia. Truth does not stop magistrates from seizing property. It does not keep contracts alive or protect business. He took a deep breath. 3 merchants approached me this week. They want me to manage their affairs, offering great terms. His eyes filled with sadness. If I stay here, my name will be ruined alongside yours. That hurt deeper than I expected. Marcus was not just an administrator. He was my right hand, my counselor, my friend. Losing him felt like tearing away a piece of myself. I breathed in slowly. I understand. Marcus stared at me. I wish you understood what you were doing to yourself, I replied softly. And I wish you could see what I have seen. But he could not. Perhaps he never would. Marcus left that very afternoon carrying only 2 small chests. The whole household gathered in the courtyard to say goodbye. Even Paul and Silas were there. Even the girl, the very one whose arrival had started all of this. Marcus embraced me quickly, formally, like a man trying to stop his heart from speaking, and then he was gone. I stood in the doorway long after he vanished into the bustling streets of Philippi, feeling the heavy weight of his absence settle inside my home. Now I had lost more than reputation. I'd lost the man who sustained half my business, the man who organized contracts, negotiated sales, managed suppliers, kept the wheels turning. How would I ever do all this alone? How would I keep managing the looms, the merchants, the shipments, the payments? I had no idea. And that terrified me more than any Roman threat. That night I dreamed of my father. He was in our old workshop in Thyatira holding a piece of purple cloth. But as I drew close, I realized the fabric wasn't stained with dye. It was covered in blood. My father looked at me with a mix of sadness and deep wisdom. Then he asked, "Purple is the color of kings, Lydia. But which king do you serve?" I woke up gasping in the dark, my heart racing, that question echoing inside me. The next morning, Paul and Silas left early, much earlier than usual. They were heading to the marketplace and the forum to keep teaching. Despite the threats and accusations, I tried to stop them. Wait a few days, hide until things cool down. But Paul only smiled. If we hide, we are saying fear has authority over us. Luke stayed behind, sitting by the window, writing without pause. Scroll after scroll of names, stories, and testimonies of those who believed. I watched how fast his pen moved. Do you really think all this needs recording? Luke didn't look up. Yes. Why? He finally stopped writing. Because even if we don't survive, someone must remember what happened here. It wasn't comforting, but it was honest. I tried to work that day to focus on the fabrics and the orders that still came in, though they were far fewer now. But my hands trembled again, just like they had on that first morning before everything changed. Chloe came in with water, carefully setting the jar beside me. "Mistress, what happens if they are arrested?" I closed my eyes for a moment. "I don't know. And what if they come for us too?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. Just then the girl appeared at the workshop door. In just a few days, she seemed like a different person. Walking tall now, looking people straight in the eye. Freedom had restored what was stolen long ago. "I want to help," she said. "I can work, clean, cook, and I can learn to weave." I watched her in silence. That girl could destroy everything I had built. And yet she deserved to live free. I motioned for her to come closer. "Come, I will teach you." We spent the whole afternoon working together. I showed her how to set up the loom tension, the threads, and weave delicate patterns without breaking the cloth. The work was slow, repetitive, almost meditative. And for a few hours, I managed to forget my fear. Forget the accusations, the lost contracts, and Marco's absence. The sun began to fade, and Paul and Silas still hadn't returned. We ate dinner in silence that night. Every sound from the street made us jump. The girl barely touched her food. Luke kept getting up to check the door. Then night fell completely, with still no sign of them. Until just before midnight, shouts echoed from the direction of the forum. An angry, roaring crowd, driven by mob violence and the flickering light of torches. And through the chaos, I heard one phrase repeated over and over. "These men are throwing our city into confusion." I ran to the roof with Luke close behind. From up there, we could see the forum lit by dozens of torches. Hundreds of people were crowding around the magistrate's platform, and in the center of that hostile crowd, two figures were dragged by guards, Paul and Silas. I watched from the roof as they were dragged through the mob. Their hands were bound, their bodies bruised and bloody from the violence. Beside me, Luke grabbed my arm tightly. "No, Lydia, don't go down. You can't do anything." But I couldn't tear my eyes away. The whole square boiled with shouts, accusations thrown like sharp stones, troublemakers, peacebreakers, enemies of Rome, dangerous men spreading unlawful customs. Every word fueled the mob's fury. And then the magistrates, men I had known for years, men I had negotiated fabrics, taxes, and contracts with, gave the order. Paul and Silas were stripped before everyone. Their clothes fell to the ground as if tearing away their dignity too. And then came the blows. The sound of rods tearing flesh echoed through the forum. Once, twice, 5, 10, 20 times. I lost count. With every blow, Paul's body convulsed. Blood splattered onto the white marble of the square. The crowd roared in approval, feeding on their pain like it was a show. And I stood frozen, unable to run, unable to scream, unable to stop it. Right then, I finally saw the weight of my choice. This was no longer just a talk about faith, nor a distant debate on doctrine or spiritual hope. It was this watching men get broken in public because they dared defy worldly power. Luke still gripped my arm. "Lydia, we must go inside if they link us to them." But I stayed there witnessing because someone had to see. This someone had to remember. When it was over, Paul and Silas were dragged to prison, barely conscious, leaving a trail of blood. Gradually, the crowd dispersed, torches went out, and the forum plunged back into darkness. But I didn't leave the roof. I stood there gazing at the sky. The stars shone above the same stars that had watched empires rise and fall for, quote, centuries. The same stars that lit the night of my father's death, the night I lost my husband, and the night my old life began to fade by the riverbank. My father used to say, "Purple is the color of kings." But it all starts in the mud, crushed shells, wet earth, open wounds. Everything of value is born first from destruction. And then Paul's words rushed back to me. "The Lord opened your heart." It wasn't my doing. It had already happened before I even realized it. And now pretending nothing changed would be lying to myself, closing my doors, turning away the young slave girl. To deny the gospel, to pretend I had never heard of the resurrection, that would be true death. I had just watched Paul and Silas get crushed before the entire city. But then I realized something terrifying. They weren't the ones dying tonight. It was the old Lydia, the cautious, calculating merchant who measured every risk and protected herself above all. Surprisingly, I didn't mourn her death. I felt a deep, overwhelming fear, almost suffocating, but not sadness. Something brand new was coming alive inside of me. For the first time, I understood that every birth is violent, and every labor brings blood. Every transformation costs more than we ever think we can pay. Even so, it is worth it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my courtyard wrapped in a thick cloak, watching the fountain reflect the starlight. My entire house was completely silent. My servants went to bed early, as if closed walls could keep the terror out. But I knew better. What happened in that public square had already changed everything. The city slept, while Paul and Silas sat in the dark prison, their backs torn open by lashes, their feet locked tight in the stocks. I could picture every single detail. The damp smell of the cell, the cold stone, the agony throbbing through them. I had opened my home, and now they were paying the price. Dawn broke slowly. Chloe stepped out of the kitchen and found me exactly where I had been for hours. "Mother, what do we do now?" I didn't answer right away because I honestly didn't know. The smart move was to pull back, claim those men were just passing travelers, and claim I knew nothing of their teachings. It might work. The magistrates respected me. Maybe they would let my life return to normal. All I had to do was close my doors. Just that. Luke appeared looking as exhausted as I was. "I have seen this before," he said softly. "The pattern is always the same. We preach, people believe, the authorities panic, and then the violence comes." He paused before asking the heavy question. "What do we do now?" The silence between us was suffocating. "We could leave," Luke suggested. "We can slip away before it is too late. But if we go, what happens to the believers?" I thought of the faces that had filled my home, the curious, the broken, the desperate souls who had found hope for the very first time. If Paul and Silas left, who would stay? Luke sighed. "Without leaders, they will scatter." The morning crawled by, heavy with tension. Soon, some of the new believers began showing up at our door. They knocked, searching for news, guidance, and comfort. I welcomed them in, not because I had the answers, but because someone had to stand firm. Just after noon, a sharp, desperate cry shattered the city's quiet, coming straight from the prison. I leaped to my feet. My heart pounded before my mind could even process what was happening. Luke rushed after me as we raced up to the flat roof. From up there, the prison looked completely untouched. The walls stood firm, and the guards were still in place, but something felt terribly wrong. The scream died down as quickly as it started, leaving a heavy, almost supernatural silence. The minutes dragged on like hours. Then someone came sprinting down our street. A breathless young man pounded on my door, gasping for air. "Lydia, the jailer is calling for you immediately." I traded a bewildered look with Luke. "What happened?" the boy panted. "They are free, and the jailer wants to be baptized. Right now." Free. Baptized. The words were too absurd to make sense. Without wasting time, I rushed out into the streets, accompanied by the other disciples who gathered along the way. Fear still hung over the city, but something else filled the air. Anticipation. When we reached the prison, the first sight was impossible to ignore. The doors stood wide open, a reality that defied all human logic. I stepped inside slowly and gasped at the scene. Paul and Silas were sitting at a table. Their backs, hours earlier shredded by Roman rods, were now wrapped in clean bandages. Bread and water sat before them, and most incredibly, they were singing not like broken prisoners, but as free men. Beside them stood the jailer, a broad-shouldered Roman veteran with a face hardened by war and years of brutal service. His wife clung to him, holding their children. They all stared at Paul and Silas with a mix of awe and reverence, as if standing before the holy. When he saw me, the jailer practically ran to my side, his voice trembling. "Thank God you came." "What happened here?" I asked. Then he began to explain. At midnight, Paul and Silas were trapped in the deepest cell, unable to sleep because of the agonizing pain. Their backs were torn open, feet locked in stocks, dried blood coating their skin. Yet instead of cursing the darkness, they prayed. Then they began singing hymns and psalms of worship echoing off the damp prison stones. The other prisoners listened in silence. And then the earth shook violently and brutally. The very foundations of the prison cracked. Their chains fell off, and every door swung wide open. The jailer woke up to absolute chaos. Open doors freed prisoners. Roman law was brutal. If a captive escaped, the guard took their death sentence. He did what any soldier would do. Drew his sword and pressed the blade against his own neck. But before he could strike, Paul's voice cut through the dark. "Do not harm yourself. We are all here." The jailer froze in shock, unable to understand these beaten, wronged men, and yet not one had fled. He rushed inside, falling on his knees before them. "What must I do to be saved?" Paul replied, "Believe in the Lord Jesus." That very night, the man who had locked them away began washing their wounds. A Roman, kneeling before bloodied Jewish prisoners, water washing over blood. Hands that once held keys now tended to raw scars. For hours, he listened to every word, every promise. Now he wants to be baptized, along with his entire household. I watched this scene unfold in silence. Paul's scarred back, Silas's bruised face, the jailer's tears, and the wonder in his children's eyes. Enemies were becoming brothers. We walked out to the courtyard where Paul baptized them all in the fountain, the jailer, his wife, and their kids. Dripping wet, they stood there crying and smiling, all at once, like people who just crossed an invisible threshold, never to return. The jailer looked at me. "You must think I have gone mad." He laughed, but his eyes brimmed with tears. "I threw away my safety, my status, everything I built. But last night, I saw the impossible. Prisons do not just open. Tortured men do not stay to save their own captors." He breathed deeply. "Jesus is real, and if he is real, nothing else matters." I knew exactly what he meant. I had just crossed that same abyss myself, the terrifying leap between safety and faith, between control and surrender. Together, we returned to my house. By now, the courtyard was packed not with onlookers, but with transformed souls, men and women who understood the cost of faith, yet chose to stand. Paul stood up before us. "Last night, I thought it was all over." He smiled faintly. "Then God made the earth shake." Everyone laughed through their tears. Sometimes God does not just open doors. Sometimes he rips them off their hinges. The jailer bowed his head, still unable to believe he was now one of us. "It had to happen this way," Paul continued. "Our enemy has become our brother." Just then, a messenger from the magistrates rushed in carrying an official order. Paul and Silas were to be quietly released and escorted out of the city. The earthquake had terrified the authorities. They wanted this whole affair buried quickly. The messenger finished reading. Paul stayed quiet for a moment, then replied, "No." Lucas raised his eyebrows in shock. "No?" Paul said, staring the man down. "They beat us publicly without a trial. We are Roman citizens. What they did was illegal." The messenger turned completely pale. "And now they want to sneak us out?" "No. Tell them to come themselves." Silence. "And let them apologize to us publicly." The man stumbled away. I stared at Paul, incredulous. "You were a Roman citizen this whole time?" "Yes." "Then why didn't you say so sooner?" Paul looked at the jailer, then at the believers gathered in the yard. "If I had stopped it, none of this would have happened." I understood. Sometimes God lets suffering tear down what comfort never could. Less than an hour later, the magistrates themselves arrived, pale, shaking, and terrified. They found Paul sitting calmly in the courtyard, surrounded by believers. "We did not know you were citizens," the chief magistrate said. "We apologize for any excessive force." Paul did not even stand. "You violated the very laws you claim to uphold." A heavy silence fell. Then he pointed right at me. "Apologize to her as well." The magistrates turned. I felt the immense weight of that exact moment. If I was publicly linked to them, there was no going back. No safety, no neutrality, no secure life. The magistrate hesitated, but then he remembered the earthquake, the rumors, and the fear gripping the entire city. Bowing his head slightly, he said, "We regret any trouble caused. Your hospitality was honorable." It was not much, but it was enough. A public admission that I had done absolutely nothing wrong. The magistrates hurried away and the courtyard erupted in relief. We had just witnessed something incredibly rare. Worldly power bowing to truth. Then Paul looked at me. "We must leave soon." My chest tightened. "Thank you," he continued. "The first church in Europe started right here. Because you said yes." I looked around. The former slave girl, now free. The jailer's family. Lucas recording every detail. Ordinary men and women choosing community over safety. I whispered, I had no idea what I was agreeing to when I said yes. Paul smiled. No one does. That is what makes faith real. The next morning, Paul and Silas prepared to leave. Lucas would stay to help strengthen our church. I walked them to the door. What now? I asked. Paul took my hands. Keep your doors open. He looked at everyone gathered. Meet together. Break bread. Tell the story. Live as if the kingdom is real. Because it is. Then before turning, he added, and when darkness comes again, sing. No prison can hold what God has decided to set free. They shared a long embrace, like men who understood that some goodbyes carry the weight of eternity. Neither of them said much. They did not need to. There are moments when words only cheapen what silence can carry perfectly. Then they stepped through my gates onto the Via Egnatia, the great Roman highway cutting through the empire like a scar of stone. Morning light bathed their path in gold as travelers. Soldiers and merchants swept past them completely unaware that these two men had just left behind a spark that would change the world. I stood frozen at my doorway. I watched until they became tiny figures, then mere shadows, and then gone. Yet I kept staring as if a piece of myself had gone with them down that road. Only after a long time did I turn around. Behind me, the courtyard was still full of people, broken men, women, and children who now called my home their sanctuary. My door remained wide open, and I knew deep down I could never close it the old way again. 3 weeks passed, and Philippi changed toward me. The marketplace grew cold. Voices dropped the moment I walked by. Merchants stopped talking the instant I crossed the forum. The rumors had spread faster than any of our trade goods, but I tried to keep working. I wrote to suppliers in Thyatira, my hometown where my name still carried weight. I examined purple dye samples, tested rare pigments, and inspected fabrics with the precision of someone who spent decades building an empire from nothing. But now, none of it was enough. An old business partner felt a piece of fabric before slowly dropping it. At any other time, I would buy from you instantly. I looked up. So what changed? The man avoided looking me in the eye. The news arrived long before your goods did. I stayed quiet. I did not need to speak. Everyone knows you harbored those preachers, the troublemakers who caused the riot, dangerous agitators, enemies of Roman order. The unsaid words hung heavy in the air. The merchant sighed. I have contracts with high officials. I can't be associated with a troublemaker. He returned my fabrics. I'm sorry, Lydia. I have children. I have to think of my family. That was my third rejection this week. By noon, I was standing in the forum holding goods that nobody dared to touch. The very market that once welcomed me with respect now shuns me like a plague. People turn away, changing their path, whispering as I pass. Some pretend not to see me. Others stare, trying to decide if I'm brave or just crazy. I returned home in silence. My workshop felt completely unrecognizable. No orders, no shipments, no steady hum of the looms. Just piles of unsold cloth in the corners and the suffocating weight of everything I was losing. The girl who was once a slave found me sitting before an empty loom. Are you all right? I hesitated because I no longer knew what all right meant. I'm trying, I replied, though even I didn't believe it. Meanwhile, our community grew daily. More mouths to feed at dinner. More weary souls seeking shelter. More people tired of pretending to be strong. Hungry not just for food, but for hope. Every new face meant new expenses. More food, more water, more space, fewer resources. My savings might last a few months, maybe. After that, I didn't know. Luke arrived that afternoon clutching some records. We need to talk about our expenses, but he stopped the moment he saw my face. What happened? I let out a soft, bitter laugh. I spent 20 years building this business, and now it's slipping away. Luke hesitated. Maybe we should pause the meetings for a while. I looked up instantly. And abandon everyone? A heavy silence fell between us. Luke sighed. You are putting these people before your own safety. I looked toward the open courtyard door. The voices of the gathering drifted in, mixed with clattering plates and laughing children. I made that choice the moment I welcomed Paul into this house. Then I lowered my voice. I just had no idea what it would cost me. That night I climbed the walls of Philippi alone. Below, the Via Ignatia cut through the city under the cold moonlight, the road that brought Paul to me, and the very road that took him away. My father's words echoed in my mind. Purple is born of mud, crushed shells, and dark earth matter destroyed before it becomes something precious. I slowly closed my eyes. Maybe I was returning to the mud myself. Footsteps broke my thoughts. It was the jailer. He was now without a uniform status or honor in Rome. After his conversion, he lost his job surviving by hauling cargo at the docks like any common laborer. He sat down beside me. Rough day, I sighed. Rough month. He stared out at the horizon before asking, Do you regret it? I paused before answering, then threw the question back. Do you? He reflected for a moment. I regret seeing my kids eat less, he said, rubbing his worn face. I regret the constant fear and waking up unsure of work tomorrow. But that night before Paul stopped me from taking my own life, I was already dead inside. His eyes met mine. Now I am poor. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but for once, I am truly alive. The wind blew between us. Finally, I asked, So is it worth it? The jailer offered a faint smile. Once you see the truth, you can't pretend you didn't. Silence. You only have two choices left. Live by it, or spend the rest of your life lying to yourself. That night, our community gathered again for dinner. Dinner was simple lentil stew, dark bread and a little oil shared among many. Even so, nearly 20 people crowded into our courtyard. Luke broke the bread, recalling the words of Jesus at the Last Supper. I looked at the faces around the table. Weary men, pain-worn women, widows, outcasts, people who had also lost everything since choosing this path. Wealth, status, family, security. Yet they kept coming back, as if they had found something stronger than fear itself. A knock echoed at the gate, silencing everyone. An elegant woman entered hesitantly. Fine robes, subtle jewelry, desperate eyes. I'm Claudia, she whispered, wringing her hands nervously. My husband bought a purple robe from you months ago. I must ask you a question. I led her inside. She sat down, whispering, I heard what you say about this Jesus. I need to know if it's true. I saw immediately that something was deeply broken in her. Why does it matter so much to you? Claudia's eyes filled with tears. Because I am dying. A heavy silence fell. A tumor. The doctors give me a few months, maybe a year, she whispered, trying to catch her breath. My husband is away. I might die before he returns. Her hands shook. I spent my life serving gods, offering sacrifices, repeating rituals. None of it brought me peace. She looked directly at me. Tell me the truth. Is this Jesus real, or just a beautiful lie for desperate people? Her words pierced my very chest. I thought of my lost business, my empty coffers, my uncertain future. But I also pictured Paul singing in a blood-soaked prison, of chains falling, the jailer washing wounds, and our table surrounded by transformed souls. So I answered her slowly. I can't prove everything to you. I paused. But I can tell you what I've seen. I shared stories of beaten men who chose song over curses, of prison doors torn open by earthquakes, enemies becoming brothers, and people leaving everything behind because they found something truer than fear. Claudia hung on every word like someone breathing for the first time, then asked, "And do you believe this?" I looked out at the lamplit courtyard where people shared their meager portions as if it were a feast. In that moment, my answer became clear. Yes. My voice was steady, not because it was easy, but because I could no longer deny what I had seen. Tears began rolling down Claudia's cheeks. "Then teach me while I still have time." And so I did just that. Claudia lowered her eyes, her hands trembling in her lap. When she spoke again, her voice was more than afraid, it was exhausted. "I've spent my whole life trying to please the gods, and yet I go to sleep terrified every single night." Her eyes welled with tears. "Nothing has brought me peace." She stared at me, clinging to her last shred of hope. "So tell me, is this Jesus real? Or is he just another beautiful lie made up for desperate people?" I felt the weight of her question pierce my chest. Silence filled the room. I thought of the lost business contracts, the market turning its back on me, my savings slowly shrinking, and my uncertain future. But I also remembered Paul singing in a blood-stained prison cell. I pictured chains hitting the floor of the earthquake, and the jailer on his knees washing the wounds of the men he once guarded. I pictured the table outside crowded with broken people finding life again. So I answered slowly, "I can't prove everything to you." I paused. "I can only tell you what I saw with my own eyes." Claudia stood motionless. I began telling her of beaten men who sang instead of cursing. I told her of prison doors ripped from their hinges by an earthquake. I told her of a Roman soldier ready to end his own life until grace reached him. I spoke of people abandoning security money and reputation because they found something truer than fear. Claudia listened like someone trying to breathe after being underwater too long. Then she whispered, "Do you really believe this?" I looked at the courtyard, lit by oil lamps. People shared their meager belongings as if they had plenty. Children ran, widows smiled. Weary men finally resting, no longer forced to pretend to be strong. In that moment, I knew my answer. Yes, my voice was firm. Not because it was easy, but because I could no longer deny what I had seen. Tears rolled down Claudia's cheeks. She bowed her head. "Then teach me while I still have time." And I did just that. We talked late into the night, speaking of fear, of death, guilt, and hope, and of an invisible kingdom that felt more real than the Roman Empire itself. When Claudia finally left, she hugged me tightly. "I will return," she smiled through her tears, "and I will bring others." And she kept her promise. In the weeks that followed, new faces began to fill my home. Women weary of empty temples, men crushed by guilt, the sick searching for hope, people drawn by the change they saw in the jailer and in my home that never closed. Our gatherings grew rapidly, 40 people, then 50. The courtyard soon became too small, and with that growth came unwanted attention. I noticed men standing across the street watching everyone who came and went. They took notes, counted visitors, and watched in silence. They weren't soldiers yet, but the threat had already begun. At the same time, my money was vanishing, my savings dwindling too fast. Maybe 3 months left, maybe less, with no contracts, no suppliers, no hope of rebuilding. At night, I stayed awake doing calculations by the light of a small oil lamp. The numbers never added up. Chloe approached me one night, holding an almost empty sack of wheat. The grain was running out and the oil too. She hesitated before continuing. "We don't have enough money for another large purchase." I stayed silent, then walked over to my lockbox and opened it slowly. Only a few coins remained inside, far less than there should be. Just enough to delay the inevitable. I picked up a gold coin, Caesar's face reflecting the lamplight. An entire empire condensed into that small piece of metal. Power, control, security. Or at least the illusion of it. A soft voice broke my thoughts. "Lydia, are you all right?" It was the young girl who once was a slave, now free, now truly alive. She walked in slowly. "I know things are hard. I know I'm only adding to your burden." I looked up immediately. "Never say that." But she continued. "I've been learning to sew better. Maybe I can sell some pieces. I want to help with the expenses." I watched her in silence. Months ago, she was broken by abuse and exploitation. Now she was trying to build a life to belong, to contribute. Suddenly, something shifted inside me. I realized I had spent weeks counting my losses, but I had rarely stopped to see what I had gained. A family, not of blood, but of choice. I took her hands. "Keep learning," I smiled warmly. "Don't worry about earning your place here. Just learn what it means to be free." She left, deeply moved. I stood alone before the open chest. The coins were running out, but perhaps my security was never there. Not in gold, nor in contracts, nor in Rome's approval. Perhaps it was at that shared table, the open door, the gathered community, in the story God was writing right before my eyes. I closed the chest slowly, but didn't lock it, leaving the key in the lock as a silent symbol of my choice. Philippi slept under the moonlight. The Via Egnatia continued to gleam in the distance, carrying soldiers, merchants, and the heavy weight of the empire. Somewhere far away, Paul kept preaching. And right here in my simple home, Europe's very first church was learning to breathe on its own. Tomorrow would bring new threats, new losses, new impossible choices. But that night, everyone was fed, our community remained gathered, and our door stayed inexplicably open. It was enough. The pressure began on a Thursday morning. I was drawing water from the well when 3 Roman officials stopped at my gate. They weren't soldiers, which terrified me even more. They carried wax tablets, records, and the quiet authority of men who destroy lives by merely shifting numbers. The chief counselor didn't even wait for an invitation. "Lydia of Thyatira," he declared, and my stomach instantly nodded. "We are conducting a tax audit of the businesses in this district." His voice was cold, mechanical. "We need to inspect your workshop and verify your inventory." My heart sank instantly. Normal tax audits were announced months in advance. Unannounced inspections meant something else entirely. Someone had exposed me. Someone wanted to see me fall. I led them to my workshop in silence. The men swarmed the place like locusts counting rolls of fabric. They ransack my dye vats, question old ledgers, and tear through my records. The elder counselor slides his finger down my financial records and stops. His eyes narrow. He points to one line. "This shipment from Thyatira was declared as a business expense," he says, looking up. "Yet I see no matching sale." The Roman counselor keeps his eyes glued to my records. His finger slowly traces down to another entry. Then he looks up. "Where did this shipment of fabric go?" My heart squeezes. For a second, I want to lie, to invent some fake buyer, but lying to Roman officials is suicide. I take a slow, deep breath. "I donated that fabric." His eyes instantly narrow. "Donated?" His stylus scrapes across the wax tablet. "To whom?" I hesitate, knowing any answer will only make things worse. But I have already crossed the point of no return. "To members of my household in exchange for food and shelter." The officials trade quick glances. The counselor looks out at my courtyard, watching the children run, hearing the voices of strangers constantly coming and going. With calculated coldness, he asks, "Your family has grown quite large, hasn't it?" Family sounds like an accusation. 20 people? 30? He tilts his head. How many are actually family and how many are just guests? Silence suffocates the workshop. I lift my chin. I offer hospitality. That is no crime. He smiles without humor. No, but writing off personal charity as a business expense is tax fraud. He makes a slow, deliberate mark, savoring the blow. Record this. Another officer immediately begins to write. He continues, we will recalculate your taxes for the last 2 years, including fines, interest, and penalties. Then he names the amount, and my world goes silent. My vision blurs. It is more than I own, more than what remains in my vault, more than I could ever raise even by selling everything. If I pay, I am ruined. If I do not, Rome takes my home, my workshop, everything. The officials close their ledgers and turn to leave. We will return with official documents, the counselor says calmly. I suggest you prepare your assets for seizure. They vanish through the door. I stand frozen in my workshop, surrounded by the sharp scent of purple dye, silent looms, and long shadows stretching across the floor. In that moment, I realize this was never about taxes. It is a trap. Rome cannot arrest me openly for my faith yet. Christianity is still seen as a strange sect of Judaism, tolerated but watched with deep suspicion. So they chose another weapon, not to destroy me with swords, but with debt and numbers, using bureaucracy to force me to choose between survival and the people who call my house home. My legs give out. I slide slowly onto a wooden bench and cover my face with my hands. For the first time in a long time, I do not know what to do. Luke finds me there almost an hour later. The workshop is drowned in silence. I tell him everything, the inspection, the accusations, the impossible debt. Luke listens without interrupting. His face is still, but his eyes betray deep worry. When I finish, he finally speaks. This is grave. I let out a bitter laugh. Grave. Luke steps closer. They are not interested in taxes, he says, looking at the scattered records. They want to destroy your business. They want to make an example of you. A heavy, suffocating silence falls. You can appeal, Luke says. You can fight this. I raise my tired eyes. With what money? Luke is silent because we both know the truth. An appeal means years of courts, bribes, and impossible costs. I take a deep breath. Then what do I do? Luke hesitates. Could you sell the house? The words pierce the air. Pay the debt, start over somewhere smaller and quieter. I stare into the empty space for a moment, then whisper, and what about them? Luke stays silent. I continue. The jailer, young Claudia. The widows, those who have nowhere else to go. My voice falters. Where will they go? Luke lowers his eyes. I do not know. Then he adds in a near whisper, I am a physician, Lydia. I spent my life learning to diagnose illness and find cures. He looks at me. But I do not know how to cure this. By afternoon, the news sweeps through our community. The tax bill, the seizure threat, losing everything. Fear spreads like wildfire. Some pack their few belongings immediately sure that the end has come. Others pray desperately for a miracle. Some simply weep in silence. The courtyard, once so full of hope, now throbbed with anxiety. As night falls, I gather everyone together. 40 faces turn to me. The jailer and his family. The young girl Claudia, who was once a slave. The women who gather here. Luke. Chloe. Men and women who heard Paul teach and chose to stay. They all expect me to have answers, to know what to do, but I do not know, and I am tired of pretending to be strong. I take a deep breath. My voice is shakier than I want. You have all heard about the tax. Silence blankets the courtyard. I continue. The amount is impossible. I cannot pay it. Some bow their heads. Others begin to weep softly. This means Rome will likely seize this home unless something changes. The silence that follows is heavy, terrifying. I feel them waiting for me to offer a solution, but I have none. I choose only the truth. I do not know what tomorrow brings. I swallow hard. I wish I knew. I wish I could promise safety, stability, and tell you all will be well. I look at each of you, but I cannot. The wind sweeps through the courtyard, making the lamps flicker. Then I tell them, all I can offer is this. My door is still open. My voice grows stronger. As long as I have the strength to keep it open, it stays open. Silence hangs for a moment. Then the jailer stands, drawing every eye. Then we stay, he says. I look up. We face this together. I try to argue immediately. You do not have to. We do need to. His voice is steady. You opened this door when none of us had anywhere to go. He steps forward. Do you really think we'd leave you now just because things got hard? Murmurs of agreement spread. Heads nod. Claudia stands next, frail and sick, but her eyes burn with courage. I have less time than anyone here. She smiles faintly. I won't waste it running. I speak up next, remembering my chains. You gave me freedom, I say, eyes welling with tears. I won't abandon you now. Then one by one, they all speak, choosing to stay, choosing each other over safety, fear, and survival. Watching us, Lydia feels something break inside her chest, but it isn't despair. It is the exact opposite. A strange, deep, painful joy mixed with terror. She is about to lose everything, and yet, for the first time, she understands this isn't the end. She isn't facing it alone anymore, and that changes everything. That night, Lydia cannot sleep. The whole house rests in silence. But inside her, a battle rages. She paces back and forth across her room, unable to quiet her thoughts. Her mind spins in circles, running calculations that always end in the same place. Ruin. 30 days left with barely a tenth of the money. She tries to find a way, thinking of selling the looms, liquidating the fabrics, giving up the jewelry kept since her wedding day, the furniture, her father's heirlooms, maybe even the workshop itself. But even sacrificing everything wouldn't be enough. Paul's words echo in her mind like a fresh wound. Store up treasures where moth and rust cannot destroy. Lydia closes her eyes. Easy to say when you aren't about to lose everything. Easy to talk about eternity when 40 people rely on your table to survive. She opens the strongbox again, counting the coins once more, as if the number might change just because she desperately needs it to. But it doesn't. Holding a gold coin, she remembers when it meant stability, control, security. Now it only shows how fragile her safety really was. Then a sound from the courtyard breaks her thoughts. Lydia walks to the window. The night is quiet and draped in shadows. But someone is still awake. I am kneeling by the fountain, praying, my quiet voice rising through the dark. No fancy words or elegant prayers, just honest, desperate pleas for Lydia, for our home, for the family born here, begging for a miracle we don't know how to ask for. Lydia watches me in silence. Months ago, I was just a broken girl the world discarded. Now I pray with absolute certainty that someone is listening. And in that moment, something shifts inside Lydia. She realizes she spent weeks running the wrong numbers, and isn't that a mistake you and I often make, counting losses, instead of counting what we have gained? Me. the jailer's family, Claudia finding hope in her final days, and Luke writing a story to outlive us all. A whole community refusing to run when the storm hit. None of these things could fit inside a strongbox. Rome would never record them, yet they were worth more than all the wealth she ever owned. She might still lose her home. That reality didn't change. But maybe losing her home didn't mean losing what truly mattered. The next week passes like a long-held breath. The house keeps running. Meals are served. Prayers and teachings continue. But we all feel the invisible weight of time slipping away. 30 days, 25, 20. Lydia tries to act normal, but I see her hands shaking as she works the fabric. Without realizing it, she begins memorizing the house, the walls, the sun-warmed stones, the constant song of the fountain, the way the morning light fills the courtyard, as if saying goodbye before the loss even comes. Meanwhile, Claudia fades fast. The illness is merciless, leaving her in constant pain she tries to hide. One afternoon, she calls Lydia to a quiet corner. Her breath is shallow and weak. "I won't live to see the deadline end." Lydia wants to lie to invent hope, to offer some beautiful comfort. But Claudia deserves the truth. She lowers her eyes. "Probably not," Lydia says softly. Claudia just nods, strangely at peace. Seeing the guilt on Lydia's face, she smiles. "I used to be afraid of dying," her voice falters. "Now I'm only afraid of living long enough to see you lose everything." She clears her throat, her eyes filling with tears. "At least this way I die seeing a house full of hope."
She grips Lydia's hands tightly, as if passing on a final inheritance.
"Promise me one thing." Lydia squeezes her fingers. "What is it?" Claudia takes a deep breath before continuing. "When this house is gone, when everything crumbles, don't let anyone convince you that this wasn't real." Her voice trembles. "What we found in this house matters." She looks into Lydia's eyes. "Don't let them steal that from you." Lydia's chest tightens. Tears threaten to fall. "I promise." Claudia passes away 3 days later, surrounded by the women she led to faith. Her last words are simple. "I am not afraid anymore." We bury her on the outskirts of Philippi, in the common ground reserved for those without family graves. Our whole community attends. A Christian funeral disguised as a Jewish ceremony, hoping not to draw too much attention from the Roman authorities. As the earth slowly covers Claudia's body, Lydia finally understands the true cost of this journey. It wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about assets. It was pain, sacrifice, loss, entire lives being poured out, and yet somehow, in an impossible way, it was still worth it. As the final layer of soil covers Claudia, Lydia stands completely still. A cold wind blows through the outskirts of Philippi, kicking up dry dust over the simple graves of the forgotten. No monument, no grand tribute, just one anonymous grave among so many others. But Lydia knows this woman didn't die as an ordinary soul. Claudia had found hope before the end. And that changed everything. As the others began to slowly drift away, Lydia keeps her eyes fixed on the freshly turned earth. And then she understands. Perhaps you and I are seeing the true price of this journey for the first time. It wasn't about money or status. It was sacrifice. It was watching people suffer and choosing to stay anyway. Yet somehow, it was still worth it. 15 days before the deadline, a small group approached her in the courtyard. 5 men. The jailer was with them. Their faces held a quiet gravity like people who had spent the night discussing something of massive importance. Lydia knew instantly they had made up their minds. The jailer stepped forward. "We've been talking among ourselves." He placed a small pouch on the table, then another, and another. The others did the same. The clinking of coins echoed through the courtyard. Small savings years of hard work turned into modest handfuls of silver and copper. "It is not much," he continued, "but together, maybe we can help." Lydia stared at the pouches in silence, then immediately shook her head. "No." The jailer frowned. "Lydia, you need this for your families." Her voice was firm. "I cannot accept this." But the man replied softly, "For what? For a security that no longer exists." Silence fell over them. He stepped closer. "You spent everything for us." The others nodded. "Now let us give something for you." Lydia tried to protest, wanting to protect them from their own generosity, wanting to stop them from sinking along with her. But then she looked at those determined, united faces and realized this was no longer just about money. It was about dignity, belonging, and refusing to stand by as mere spectators of each other's pain. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked down. "Thank you." Even adding all their contributions, it wasn't enough. Not even close. But the gesture shifted something inside. You and I can see she finally knew she wouldn't fall alone. 10 days before the deadline, Lydia sat in her workshop, trying to find some impossible calculation to save the house. The numbers didn't add up. They never did. She rubbed her tired eyes as Chloe rushed in. "Someone is at the door." Lydia raised her head slowly. "Who?" "A merchant. He says he came from Corinth." Her heart raced for no clear reason. She followed Chloe to the entrance. The man looked exhausted from his journey, covered in dust with worn sandals and road-weary eyes. Seeing Lydia, he bowed slightly. "Lydia of Thyatira." She nodded slowly. "My name is Stephanus." Then he lifted a heavy leather bag. "Paul sent me." For a second, Lydia couldn't breathe. "Paul?" The man smiled faintly. "He is in Corinth now." He heard what is happening in Philippi. He placed the bag in her hands. The sheer weight startled her. She opened it slowly. Coins of gold and silver. Far more than she imagined. Still not enough, but far beyond what she believed possible. Stephanus continued, "Paul asked me to tell you something." Lydia looked up. "The churches of Galatia heard about the first church in Europe," he smiled, "and they decided to help." Lydia's eyes welled with tears. Stephanus watched the quiet bustle of the house around them, the people, the children, the weary faces. Then he spoke gently. "You are not alone, Lydia." He touched his chest. "We belong to each other now. When one part suffers, we all suffer together." Lydia pressed the bag to her chest, adding it to the community's offerings. She now had nearly half the debt. Still not enough, still dangerous. But that bag meant so much more than money. It meant Paul remembered that people she had never met cared about her survival, and that this movement had already grown beyond Philippi. 5 days before the deadline, Lydia finally accepted she might lose everything. She began to plan for the future. Where would everyone go? How could they stay united without the house? Should they remain in Philippi or flee to another city? Luke kept writing without pause, recording names and stories, every detail, like someone desperate to stop time from erasing it all. One night, Lydia found him working by the glow of a lamp. "Do you really think anyone will care about this one day?" Luke looked up from his scrolls. "Yes." She studied his face. "Why?" He smiled faintly. "Because the truth always finds a way to outlive empires." On the final night before the collection, Lydia gathered everyone in the courtyard. The fountain murmured behind her. Lamps illuminated the faces of these people who had become her family. She had prepared a speech, words of hope, gratitude, and faith. But when she opened her mouth, raw truth came out first. "I am afraid." Silence gripped the courtyard. Her voice faltered. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know where we will go, or if I made the right choices. Her eyes scanned their faces. All I know is, I would do it all again. Tears fell. Because you are worth more than this house, more than my business, more than any false sense of safety. Her voice cracked. Paul asked me to keep the door open. She took a deep breath. Tomorrow Rome may shut this house, but they cannot destroy what we have become. The jailer spoke softly. Then we'll survive together. That night they broke bread, shared wine, and sang quiet hymns so they wouldn't draw attention. Lydia looked around at this unlikely family and finally understood. The kingdom was never a building, never wealth, never security. That was the kingdom revealing Jesus and people choosing to stand together when everything else said run. On the morning of the 30th day, Lydia woke before dawn, washed her face, and dressed carefully. If this was the day she lost everything, she would face it with dignity. She walked through the house one last time. I memorized these walls, the shadows, the warm stones where our church was born. Today the house wakes in silence. We barely speak, pretending everything is normal while waiting. Beside me, Luke just keeps writing, always writing, desperately trying to preserve the memories of what might soon vanish. At noon, they arrived 3 officials and 2 soldiers. The chief collector doesn't even hide his exhaustion. Lydia of Thyatira, we want the payment. She opens the chest, handing it over. All our remaining savings, our community offerings, even the money Paul sent. The men carefully stack and count our coins, checking the numbers, scratching notes onto wax tablets. Then he looks up at us. This only covers half the debt. Silence cuts through our home like a blade. You have until sunset to leave. Someone started weeping behind me. After that, this house belongs to Rome. I just stood there, numb to the bone. But before leaving, the evaluator hesitated. Something softened in his eyes, almost guilt, almost respect. He lowered his voice. For the record, this foreclosure was politically motivated. His eyes met mine. Someone wanted you gone. Silence. Whatever it is you believe in, it must be powerful. He left, and my home exploded in panic. People rushed around, weeping, frantic over what to pack. I raised my hand, calling for quiet. My voice was steady despite the pain. We only have a few hours, I said, breathing deeply. Take only the essentials. Where are we going? Someone asked. I looked at them. My makeshift family. My true treasure. We will find out together. One last time I entered the workshop, running my fingers over my father's loom, touching the purple fabrics. 20 years of labor, reduced to assets that now belonged to Rome. Right there, I finally collapsed to my knees, weeping bitterly for my father, for my late husband, and for the self-made woman I used to be. That version of me was dying. Luke slipped in silently. He sat beside me on the dirt floor. He didn't try to stop my tears or offer easy answers. He just stayed. Finally, I managed to whisper, I don't know what to do anymore. Luke looked at me calmly and replied, The door was never the house, Lydia. I slowly raised my eyes. The door has always been you. Silence filled the workshop. Ron could seize my building, my fabrics, and my entire business. Luke smiled gently. But they can never erase the fact that you opened your door when it was easiest to close it. I shut my eyes and finally understood. Maybe perhaps this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just another door opening. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that loss is never the final chapter. Because God keeps turning crosses into resurrections, and ruins into new beginnings, seizures into unexpected miracles, and endings into open doors for something greater.